Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to my library tour 2025. Allow me to explain. I started a library tour of my little book room, the little sanctum sanctorum that I think everybody should have, a place that is small, that is full of books in the case of readers, where you can close the door and lock the world out and just be your own little space. I wanted to do a library tour, a visual record of the books that surround almost every wall of that room, from floor to ceiling. And I made a start on it, but I ran into trouble because I use those books. They're my favorite books, the ones that are in that room. And they're the ones that I go back to the most often. I pull them off the shelf. I wander around with them. I read them on the fainting couch or on the seat of ease in the bathroom, and then I put them back somewhere else. So it was turning out not to be a really good visual record. And on top of that, I was starting to hit logistical problems as to how to film the various shelves in that room. There's one that I think is totally impossible. I don't see how I could get a camera in there at all. So I decided that I would just sort of give up on the idea of a visual record for the little book room. But you all like the library tour. So I thought, well, if I continue the library tour, what would I do? There are a bit of problems associated with that. There are bookcases that are all history. So what about those of you who aren't interested in history? You'll have all that. There are bookcases that are all biography. What if you're not interested in biography? And then I thought, there are also problems with filming angles. And in addition to that, as I wrote recently on my Substack blog, Steve Reads, there's also the fact that the library itself is in a bit of disarray. It is growing out of control. It needs a heavy haircut. So I was faced with all of those potential obstacles. And then I thought, well, if you're facing obstacles, why not face the worst obstacle of all? Why not try the hardest, and then everything else you do after that will be easier? And so I have returned to the darkest depths of Mordor. Now, those of you who have been watching this channel for a while will know what I mean. In the middle room here at Hyde Cottage, there is a hutch built into the wall. I think it's meant for plates, or something like that. It's deep shelves, and they go all the way up to the ceiling. Of course, if you're a book person, that's going to say one thing and one thing only. That's going to say books. And so books have found their way into this hutch. And the reason I call it the darkest depths of Mordor is because it quickly became an uncontrollable mess. And it ends up being the place where all my books go, without any rhyme or reason, without me even remembering what's here. And then I have to go digging in this one place. They don't do that with any other place in Hyde Cottage, just here. So we're going to go through the darkest depths of Mordor and see what kind of sense we can make of it. I'm relying here on the fact that one of the fringe benefits of shelf tours, library tours, for me has always been that it helps me to get a grip on what I'm doing, which would be great. Mordor needs a grip. So I don't know how we're going to do this. I honestly don't know how we're going to do this. But let's start with the bottom shelf here. The bottom shelf is on top of a bureau that's also built into the wall. So the bottom shelf of this thing is rock solid. It is not like a bookshelf. It can take any amount of weight, and it's tall, so it can fit any kind of book. And any kind of book has ended up here. And also stuffed in the side. So how are we going to do this? Well, we can start with these. These are old science fiction magazines. Asimov, Analog, couple of science fiction, fantasy and science fiction. A couple of them are new-ish. I was still subscribing to these things in, what is this? 2006? Yeah, 2006 was this issue. I was still subscribing to a few of these things until relatively recently, right around 2010, 2016 is when I really stopped. I realized that all three of the major square-bound science fiction periodicals, Asimov, Analog, and the magazine of science fiction and fantasy, are all ideologically captured. I was okay for a while there. For a couple of years, I was okay knowing that in every table of contents there was going to be a so-called science fiction story that was really an allegory for the trans experience. I was okay with that, I guess, because I got other stories in addition to that. But then it became that every story is either an allegory for the trans experience or an allegory, a very thinly veiled allegory, about how all men are rapists. And I don't want to read that. There are people out there that are getting, the going page rate from these magazines to write that sort of crap. Good for them. But I don't want to read it, so I let my subscription to all of these things just lapse. The subscription isn't cheap anyway. If I'm not going to pay that kind of a subscription for your Twitter feed. So I just let it lapse, and so I don't get them anymore. I have no idea who's publishing them anymore. I know what they're like. I know definitely what they're like. Those, once you have an organization that has been ideologically compromised in that way, the only way to solve that problem is to fire everyone in your organization who professes that ideology. Everyone. The kid in the mailroom. Everyone. If you have even one person left, you still have a cancer cell that will grow. That's all it will do. It will destroy your product before it moves on to some other product to destroy. So, and I know that hasn't happened because I would have read about it in the trade journals. If there'd been a top-to-bottom reorganization of any of these magazines, I'd have read about it. So they are still that way. I'm not missing anything. But these older ones were when people didn't do that. When the ideological bent that you might get in some of these stories would be anti-communist. But even there, not always. I have a few of these. Every once in a while, a batch of them will show up at my bookstore, and if they're $1 a piece, I get them. Just because they have almost every issue has a hidden gem. But those were piled on top here. The rest of these are all wedged in. Good Lord. Okay, well, this is Star Trek, 50 Artists, 50 Years, which is all different kinds of artwork about Star Trek, all kinds of different artistic approaches to Star Trek by a whole bunch of different artists. Really, they're all the bad guys from Star Trek. Really wonderfully done. Really, this is the type of big picture book that you can just lose yourself in and just keep reading and just keep looking at it. What else have we got here? Oh God, these are wedged in. All right, well, kids book. Talk about a kids book. This is a classic. Make Way for Ducklings, about a duck family that makes its home on an island in public gardens. We have this thing, Audubon's Animals. This is not the famous volume on Audubon's birds. This is instead the quadrupeds. And it's just a big, oversized guide to all of those that gives you the reproductions and then descriptions of what they are and what the animals that are in them. We have Once Upon a Time, collection of fantasy stories with illustrations by Greg Hildebrandt. Look at that. How lovely. That's the main reason that I have this thing, is the illustrations. It's just buried in there. We have a visual companion. This is Melissa McCormick, a visual companion to The Tale of Genji. Takes you through every chapter and gives you some of the historic artwork that chapter inspired. We have another children's book, Barn Dance, which is just wonderful, about a skinny kid who encounters a dance going on in his family's barn, not the kind of dance you would expect. Okay, here, look at this thing. This is from this year, I think. This gigantic book about the moon, about Earth's moon. Just beautiful. Old black and white photos, brand new photos from space agencies. Just lovely. Just a lovely thing. Wedged in here amidst piles of garbage. But really isn't. I don't have any shelves that would fit that otherwise. We have this thing here, this great big thing, The World of Bats, which is neat because it has this upside down on the front cover. This is an oversized thing that just takes you through bat colonies, some of the most well-known North American species. We have another thing here. This is M. Brock Fenton. This is a big picture book of his on bats that does the same thing. Just takes you through a lot more new color photography here. Really, all the bat books ought to be together. There are quite a few of them in the little book room. Maybe those should go there. Okay, this definitely belongs in the little book room. This is Peter Arno, Sizzling Platters. This is a collection of his New Yorker cartoons. I love New Yorker cartoons, and I also like collections of individual New Yorker cartoonists. And Peter Arno was one of their greatest, one of their most legendary. This ought to be in the little book room, so I'll set it aside here. We have the Howard Pyle, Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, and the story of King Arthur and his knights. This is also illustrated. Let's see if we can get. Yeah, there we go. This is also illustrated. This is Howard Pyle writing kids' versions of both of these. Of course, one of these is for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. So coming right up. And I knew that was coming up, and I wanted to reread Pyle. I haven't reread Pyle in forever. And I have the ebooks, but I thought, wouldn't it be neat to go to, when you go thrift shopping or going to used bookstores, try the children's section and see if you can find this. I didn't know that I would find both of them in one volume, but happy that I did. Another kid's book. I think I have a copy of this in the little book room. This is Eve Bunting. This is I Am the Mummy, Heb Neffert. A wonderful, wonderful book whose main storyline will go right over the heads of the kids that are watching for the mummified cats. Right over their heads, but that's okay because adults will appreciate it. We have a graphic novel, a long graphic novel of 300 by Frank Miller about the Spartans at war against the Persians at the hot gates of Thermopylae. What is this thing? It's in crappy shape, whatever it is. Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot I had this. This is an advanced copy, but it's seen better days. Yeah, this is a review copy from the University of Chicago Press. This is Venice Lessons, and this isn't even, I don't know what this looked like when I never got the finished copy of this, but this is all about very technical detail about how you build neighborhoods in a place like Venice. Let's see here. What is okay? We have John McManus. This is unbound pages of his book To the End of the Earth. The U.S. Army and island hopping on the way to Japan. Very, very good stuff. Don't know what this is doing here. I have a whole stack elsewhere for unbound pages like that. Okay, we have a Dinosaur Behavior, an illustrated guide by Michael J. Benton. This is great. I've had a number of different books like this, but I can never get enough of them. This is, I opened it to the T-Rex. This is this author drawing on the latest discoveries of science in order to tell what dinosaurs actually did, not what they looked like, but what they did, how they lived, what they prioritized, if you want to put it that way. Then we have a great big book. This is Boston in Transit. This is a map history, like a map history of public transportation in Boston and in the surrounding areas. So you get bridges and tunnels and lines of transportation that aren't around anymore. They don't exist anymore, but they did once upon a time. Just love the thing. Sorry, everything's falling apart here rather predictably. We have Dogs in Art, which just takes you through all the famous portraits of art, of dogs in art from the earliest times. So you've got Greek vase there, all the way to the present day. What are some of the latest things? Yeah, modern painters and whatnot. I'm very familiar with this. The idea of making an art book in which you collect pictures of dogs is very popular and has been for 150 years at least. So I've had a lot of these things, but this one is really strong on text. It's really strong on the history, so that's the whole reason that I kept this one. Oh no, oh no. All right, well here we have something that I'm almost hesitant to show you because it's in such terrible shape. This is a 2-volume, Arthur Chamberlain's 2-volume biography / work account of Holbein, Hans Holbein, that goes through his life and all of his portraits. There's the Duchess of Milan there. So you get the portraits and you get a huge amount of history in these pages. Let's get you another portrait here. There we go. There's Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, Thomas Norfolk's son, who has such wonderful scenes in The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel. And the reason that I hesitate to show you this is because this is what Volume 1 looks like, just from sheer use. These are such great volumes that my pair of them is in terrible, terrible shape. Oh my. Okay, we have a hardcover graphic novel. This is the artist P. Craig Russell. And he this is a hardcover of The Ring of the Nibelung, where he did a graphic novel rendition of Wagner's opera cycle. Far more easily endurable than the actual sitting through the opera. We have a graphic novel. Oh, this is fairly recent. This is the very best of Marvel Comics. Got this at Harrington's on the coast. And this is just a reprint volume of iconic issues of Marvel Comics, and it's quite good. It's very, very well chosen reprints. What about this? Oh, all right. Okay, well, this is this is another thing that just recently got here. This is the Nero Wolfe cookbook. This is takes you through. Nero Wolfe is Rex Stout's signature detective. He's enormous. He hardly ever leaves his house. He is a gourmand, and very much as one of the employees in his house is his cook full time. And lots of the meals are described in great detail. So this thing actually has a lot of grist for its mill. Now see, if I touch this, it's going to avalanche down. Ugh, this is just in no shape at all. This is, okay, what have we got here? See, these are falling apart. Sorry. I should have addressed the issues with infrastructure first before I. Okay, this is the Oxford Bible Atlas, an old-style Bible atlas that's in far more detail and far more historically literate than most modern Bible atlases are. This thing is in really rough shape. Why don't we set that aside? See if we can do first aid on it. We have 99 Variations on a Proof by Philip Orden. I have obsessed about this book over the time that I've had it. It is trying its hardest to make itself comprehensible to me. It does not, but it is trying really hard to do that. And I value that. I value when a book is trying to do that. It's trying to make me understand the different ways that you would go at proving the world, the various worlds of math through one contention. It did not make me understand that, but it tried really hard. Sorry, everything's falling over here. We have the architecture of the British country house. So not just the usual pretty picture guide, but taking you through how these houses worked, how they actually worked, how they were built, how they hung together, what they were like in all kinds of weather. I love that sort of thing. Just love it. Okay, I'm trying to have things not fall apart here. Oh, and it's not working. Okay. We have this thing. This has seen better days. This is Superman cover to cover. That's the name of the book. But it has this gatefold cover here. See where there's a hole in the cover, and that means it's going to rip. That means the cover is going to rip. I really should have taken the cover off this and just left it. But they wanted to be clever and show you all the different ways that Superman has looked over the years. And the thing inside the window was the first way that he looked on Action Comics. And that's a great idea, but it doesn't work because these die-cut covers are always going to rip like this. But this is just a tour of Superman in the artwork through the ages. Just wonderful. Just a wonderful Superman volume. Okay, we have Men's Adventure. This is from Taschen, is it not? Yeah, this is from Taschen. This is a gigantic collection of the lurid artwork from men's adventure magazines, Western magazines, survival magazines, and whatnot. Wonderful to go through. Just wonderful to browse through. A lot of things in here are wonderful to browse through. We have another New Yorker cartoonist, George Booth. This is... Oh, wow, look at how young he is. Good Lord. This is just a collection of his cartoons. He also became somewhat synonymous with the New Yorker because of how beloved his cartoons were. Sorry, I'm trying to negotiate here, and it's not really working. Oh my God, everything's falling over. Well, we're only going to do this part once. Everything is falling over here, so let's just try and finish up, shall we? Now, Boston statues, a guide to the statuary of Boston. There's Leif Erikson in his miniskirt. What else? Can we do another couple before we're totally out of luck? Oh, God, help us. This is Glynis Fox. This is a graphic novel of Charlotte Bronte before Jane Eyre. This gives you there she is writing with the dog, giving her side eye. And we've got these old historical pamphlets. Got one for the Viking ships and one for Pompeii, where you get taken through in fairly brisk but fairly informative style. You get taken through the basics of the subject. I have 2 of those. I think there were 20 of them. Let's see here. No, all the rest of this is just junk. Okay, so that's long enough. That will have to do. I think we've actually done a fair amount of the bottom shelf of the Darkest Depths of Mordor. I think this is about as good an essay of that shelf as I could do. So the next shelf, I don't know. I don't know if this will actually work. I thought if I'm going to address this problem, I should take the bull by the horns. But now I'm thinking this is a little too much bull, a little too much horn. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll wrap this up and give this some thought. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.